name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a land use attorney and a partner with the law firm of Tobin Carberry, located in New London, Connecticut. It's a pleasure to be before this board once again. I'm here on behalf of my client, Stephen St. Germain, who has a contract to purchase 2 parcels of vacant land encompassing approximately 34 acres in total, located on the southerly side of Cemetery Road and currently owned by Langevin Realty, LLC. Mr. St. Germain has submitted an application to the Commission for a zone change to rezone these 2 parcels from RA 60 to the RA 30 district. Joining me tonight in the audience in the front row is Mr. St. Germain. This is a public hearing tonight, and while our applications are simple and straightforward, I am required to build a record. I'm going to try to do that as quickly and as efficiently as possible because I know you have a lot of things on your agenda tonight. Tonight, I would remind you that you sit in your legislative capacity in evaluating our application, and you're directed by your state statutes to consider your plan of conservation and development and your comprehensive plan for zoning in your decision-making process. For the record, I would note that all public notice requirements have been met, including notice to nearby property owners and certification of that notice as required by your regulations. I have an additional handout that I'd like to pass out at this time. I'd like it to be entered in an exhibit to the record. Sure. Just to orient you with the handout I submitted to you, the first page is taken from your plan of conservation and development map. It is your village centers map. You'll see on that map there is a yellow area that's been highlighted. Those are the subject parcels. There is, on the second page, that is an enlargement of that area showing the 2 parcels involved in the proposed zone change. You can see that those 2 parcels are located within your Plainfield village center as defined in your plan of conservation development. Page 3 is another version. I know I submitted a version previously of the actual parcels. It's in your zone map. The red lines indicate the boundaries of the parcels involved in the application. The light sort of beige is the RA 60 district, which the 2 parcels currently sit in. You can see that there is orange, which is the RA 30 to the north and the northwest of the site. There's industrial across the Providence-Worcester Railroad, and you can see to the south is an RA 19 district along Pleasant Street. And the final document I have in my package is an aerial photo with parcel lines added, showing the area and showing the land uses around it and some areas that I've called out as development areas on the site. The 2 subject properties that are part of this application, as I said before, are located southerly of Cemetery Road, and they're currently located within your RA 60 district. The 2 subject properties are located, are to the north of the site, are the old burial grounds and the new Plainfield Cemetery, which buffer the properties and residences across Cemetery Road to the north, and which sit in an adjacent RA 30 district along Lovers Lane. To the east of the site is the Providence-Worcester Railroad line. To the south, as I said before, is a dense neighborhood of homes along Pleasant Street. Again, it's zoned RA 19. And to the west, there is multifamily housing. That includes the Twin Oak Apartments and the Cross Creek condominiums, as well as Pond View on Cemetery Road. Pond View, as some of you may know, is another multifamily project. It is also owned by Mr. St. Germain, and it's immediately west of this site along Cemetery Road. The 2 subject parcels that are involved in this application, especially the larger western property, if you've been out there and you're familiar with the property, have inland wetlands on them that limit the development in the central portion of that land assemblage. That being said, there are areas of both parcels that are quite suitable for development. especially along Cemetery Road immediately adjacent to the Pondview development in the northwestern corner of the assemblage. There's also the possibility of some additional developable land in the southeast corner of the assemblage, accessed from the end of North Pleasant Street. Considering that there's public sewer available both on Cemetery Road and in the Pleasant Street neighborhood, both of these areas are well positioned for residential development and at a higher density. My client tonight seeks to rezone the entirety of these two parcels to the RA 30 district to allow the development potentially of multifamily dwelling units in these developable areas as permitted under your regulations. As you're aware, unlike the RA 60 district, the RA 30 district permits dwellings for more than one family, provided that there's at least 30,000 square feet of lot area per unit, and there are no more than 4 units in any building. Under the current RA 60 zoning, these two parcels that are part of the application would be limited to the development of only a few single-family dwellings occupying the same developable portion of the parcels. However, if this commission chooses to rezone the properties to RA 30, it opens up the possibility of using these very same areas more effectively for additional units, consistent with higher density zoning and uses that are already immediately adjacent to these parcels. In other words, tonight, rezoning these parcels allows for the more efficient development of this land, concentrating the development in the areas of the site that are suitable for development, and in turn, preserving the areas that aren't, which are the wetland areas. As I mentioned before, tonight you sit in your legislative capacity, and our state's zoning statutes direct you to consider your plan of conservation and development and your comprehensive plan for zoning, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is your zoning regulations and your zoning map read together in your decision-making process. Now, from my client's perspective, this is a straightforward zone change that is wholly consistent with your POCD. As you know, the 2018 POCD identifies the subject properties as just within the Plainfield Village area. That's in the handout that I showed you. The POCD strongly encourages new development and investment into Plainfield's defined village areas because that's where this community has spent the money to build the infrastructure necessary to support that development. The POCD also identifies the need for new quality housing opportunities in Plainfield and strongly supports the diversification of housing types for all different income levels within the community. With new employers moving into town, seniors looking to downsize, and young people looking for new, flexible, and affordable housing options, the need for multifamily housing in this community, quite frankly, has never been greater. With the availability of public sewers to this site, a rezoning of the properties to a higher density district, the RA 30, which allows some modest multifamily development, makes perfect sense. Rezoning will encourage the highest and best use of the developable portions of these two parcels, and it will lead to new housing units for new residents that will live near the Plainfield Village area and support the local businesses you have in that area of town. The rezoning is also consistent with your comprehensive plan for zoning. The subject properties are already immediately adjacent to the RA 30 district to the north and the west, and an even more dense RA 19 district to the south. This is not spot zoning, but rather it's the extension of an existing and adjacent R30 district into these two properties. In fact, if approved, the rezoning of these properties creates a more natural and expected gradient of zoning from north to south, rather than a lower density RA 60 zone sandwiched in between two higher density districts, the RA 30 and the RA 19. Tonight, my client and I would ask you to support our application for a zone change and allow us to pursue a development plan for the property, a plan that we would bring back before you at a later date for review and consideration. I certainly appreciate your attention tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions of the Commission. I would also reserve my right to rebut and or respond to any public comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if you have a comment or a question on this application, this is your opportunity.
Jason Slozak. I live on Floral Street. My property, I do have a piece of property kind of abuts that. I have two sections, one on 5, one on 0. I have the apartment complex behind us, which is Twin Oaks or whatever it is. I can see that they developed the over 55 complex down the bottom there, usually all woods, swamp. Off my property, it's all swampland down there. Once you go further down the neighborhood, there's a nice big pond down there. I've been here 18, 19, 20 years, something like that. And I've tried to fish that pond, my children have tried to fish that pond, and I've always been told it's a conservation area. I do know Langevin owns those properties back there. I know it's a cornfield, it was a grapevine at one point. I don't see the purpose of developing any of that. One, you're ruining the wetlands that's already there. Two, for all those people that live in that neighborhood, it's quiet. It's just woods. We don't have to look at more buildings. I wish I never bought my house when I did, and looking at the condos right out my back window. You know, it's not the pleasant view. I don't think anybody else wants to see that. So as far as the zoning change, you know, I live next to an R60. I am R19. I did question about getting my zoning changed a few years back, because I had some things that were going on, and I was pretty much told I'm no way. So if I can't change it back to farmland, or do what I wanted to do, then why are we going to take it from farmland and develop it into more buildings that are really unsightly? I mean, nobody wants a big building complex right there. But, sorry.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public on this application?
Yep.
All right.
My name is Steve Broder, and I'd like to make a few comments. I've lived up on the end of Plainfield Street my whole entire life. I'm 70 now. That sewer line in the end of town water. You know, where's that going to go? Is it going to go down North Pleasant, or is it going to come off of, I can't even think of the name of the road now. Cemetery Road. I personally, I can't see it. I'm dead set against it. What happens when I'm dead, I don't care, but right now, I hope I have quite a few good years left. But I can't, you know, plus you got the railroad there. And I know once he puts that building up, you're going to have a lot of complaints, because you're right there where they blast the horn. I know I live there. It don't bother me, but I live there. I'm the last house, so. I definitely, I cannot see it. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Question for the applicant. Are there any conservation easements on that property? Or
No.
any areas that have been designated as conservation, preservation?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any other comments or questions from the public? Yeah, go ahead.
A couple questions. You're figuring on building
Excuse me, can I
behind...
get your name for the record, please?
Oh, Denise on Cemetery Road.
Thank you.
You're planning on building behind cemeteries? Is that what...
So just to clarify, tonight's application is a zone change request because currently with the RA60 zoning regulations, apartments are not allowed under the regulation in an RA60 zone. So the current application before us is to change it from an RA60 to an RA30 because in an RA30 they could possibly develop apartments. So
Okay.
this is not a site plan or application specifically for apartments, but for a zone change that would allow for it, just to
Okay.
clarify.
I want to picture where they're talking about. Is this behind the cemeteries?
So could you give a location, a more clear location, using some landmarks that people might be familiar with?
Yeah. Would you like me to do that now, or would you like to do that as part of our vote?
If you could do that now to answer her question, that would be great.
As I I testified previously, a large proportion of the property is wetland. You can't develop and fill wetlands in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
So there are areas of the site that aren't wetlands. And one of those areas is directly adjacent to the pond view development on the cemetery.
Okay.
And that does run for a portion of it behind the, I guess it's the old burial grounds or the old Plainfield cemetery. There is some area, and that's the primary interest of my client, but again, that plan is not before the board tonight. The other area that's potentially developable would be at the end of North Pleasant Street. There is a large agricultural field there. It's quite high and set up above the wetland, and that area as well has some development potential. Whether it would be developed or not, again, not in front of the board tonight, but the vast majority of the two parcels are wetland and can be developed.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the public?
Joanne Langevin-Titus. I am an active member of Langevin Realty. It is our property for sale. I too, it is a beautiful area. Lots of agriculture happened there. It is not a wildlife sanctuary, and it is actually all private property. At times, people were allowed to go there and, potentially fish or whatnot, but it was always private property. And if anybody has any questions about the property, like I said, I've lived there my entire life, except for the last year, so I can certainly answer some questions. I guess no one really wants to ever see a beautiful piece of land change or get developed. However, we do live in a time where housing is in shortage, affordable housing is in great shortage, and my family actually made the decision to put this land on the market, and we went to Steve. He had some good ideas. I know he has a love of the land as well, because he also grew up in the neighborhood on, what is your street? Pine Street, which is across from Cemetery Road. So if anyone has any questions regarding the land itself, I'm able to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public?
Christine Langevin Earhart. Joanne is my sister. My family owns the property. And I too understand the neighbors looking out and saying, we don't want any more building up. But as the attorney has pointed out, this is in the town center. Joanne said, again, and I will reiterate, there's very little available affordable housing. That's a gravel pit. It's a gravel pit. I suppose we could be thankful that he wants to do that, rather than having Rosslands come in and dig the gravel out of it. That is, that program. I'm sorry, we've skated on that pond. You want to talk? We've skated on that pond, we've enjoyed that pond, we fished there, we've sledded there, but now's the time for change. And you talked about the misunderstanding of the conservation issue. A lot of it was insurance. We didn't want people going down there, getting their hook caught on something, falling in and drowning. I'm a lifeguard, so that's really a soft spot for me. The pond is always going to be there. The wetlands are always going to be there. That Revolutionary War cemetery is not going to change. It's there, it's protected. So, I can call it my own personal gravel pit. Steve can call it a potential new site for affordable housing in town, which is of a critical need. And it's your decision here now. But the wishes of our family, or the wishes of our family are that the property now be sold. It's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public?
I was just curious, how many units are going to be put in?
Okay, so to be really clear, this is a text amendment change tonight. It's not a specific application for an apartment complex. So
I was just
number,
curious because it said RA60 to RA30.
correct.
And he said that he was going to be able to get more out of cutting in half. So I was wondering what is the difference? Like how many more units on a RA30 versus RA60?
Okay, so RA60 apartments are not currently allowed.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of the change, so that it would allow for other uses not allowed in the RA60 zone. So just to, for public awareness, when we're looking at an RA60 zone, by right it allows single-family detached dwellings, agricultural operations, the keeping and breeding of animals, seasonal stands, golf courses, churches, places of worship, schools, public or private, cemeteries, hospitals, mobile homes, accessory uses. Then there's also special permit uses in an RA60 zone, municipal uses, elderly housing, accessory dwelling units, group daycares, child daycares, dog kennels, recreational campgrounds, earth excavation, bed and breakfast, indoor equestrian, commercial agricultural buildings, agritourism, and breeder kennels. So with a change to an RA30 district, the RA30 uses would change to by right, must be connected to public sanitary sewer required. So that is not a requirement of the RA60 district. Single-family detached churches, places of worship, schools, public and private, accessory uses, incidental to the home occupations, dwellings for more than one family, municipal uses. The special permit uses include garden apartments, municipal uses, elderly housing, accessory dwelling units, group daycare, child daycare, recreational campgrounds, earth excavation, convalescent homes, and the multifamily resident development. So those are the changes we're looking at. What's allowed in RA60 versus what's allowed in RA30.
Could the area support it being turned into RA30 to support?
So Ryan, the property is within the public city sewer hookups, correct?
Yes.
Any other?
I am Pat Roder. I live on North Pleasant Street. Personally, I don't want to see it changed. We live at the end of the road. It's a beautiful view that we have. I don't really feel like looking at apartments if, they go up there. I understand that it was always private property. And, our kids were told not to go down there, and whatnot. And because it was a bird sanctuary, that's what we were told. But, now we have ATVs, it says like dead end, no trespassing. We see ATVs going down there and, doing wheelies and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, the privacy's kind of like shot. So, I don't know. I mean, I'd just say leave it alone, but it is what it is. I understand people need housing, but I'm sure there's a lot of empty buildings in Plainfield that you can knock down and, or renovate into apartments, but it is what it is.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any other comments or questions from,
Jesus.
Yes, I just heard from the owner that was never considered a sanctuary. Well,
ladies and gentlemen in the audience, we're trying to hear the speaker. Thank you.
I can remember that we couldn't go down, and I don't even get down on property now. And we got people going through their ATVs, motorcycles, and they're riding along my property line full bore, kicking up rooster tail. I finally yelled at the guys the other day. Not at all, not at all. I don't think it's gonna last, but, and I also hear this thing that, we got all kinds of employment here and this and that. Where? You've got Lowe's. I'm sure there's a lot of people from town that work there. But that's not gonna carry all these people I wanna bring in. We've got this new place there, what is it, Uline? Well, I'm kinda wondering how that's gonna be. You got, what is it, Amazon coming in. And are all these people gonna get jobs at these places? I kind of doubt it, because I don't think they pay like places
Sir,
like.
we need to bring your comments related to this application. So the jobs of the other industries, we have to talk about the zone change. So do you have comments related to whether or not to change this from the RA 60 to the RA 30?
Well, to be honest with you, no, I don't support it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public?
Can I say it from here?
If you can say it loud.
Art Gagney. I just want to remind you, that we have an affordable housing plan. We have the Plan of Conservation and Development, and they both call for affordable housing. And lately, we've been putting market price housing up, new houses and stuff that aren't affordable. And I worry without affordable housing like this, that we're going to go below, and then we'll be open to developers. So keep that in mind. We do have an affordable housing plan that calls for multifamily housing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments for the public? Yes?
I just have one question.
If you could say your name for the record and
My
speak
name is
loudly.
Mary.
Thank you.
I live in Moosehead. My question is, because I've been trying to follow this, what he wants to build, is it affordable housing? With the change, if the change were to go through, is that the reason that he's requesting the change for affordable housing?
So
Or is it only for multiple?
So they're requesting a zone change to allow a zone that would allow apartments. It would not necessarily be affordable housing. What are the requirements for affordable housing, Ryan?
For this zone, there are
Okay.
four. If there are builds to say garden apartments.
Yep.
There are.
Okay. So that would be presented with the special permit process if they move forward with a multifamily residence development.
Even though I don't live near there, my opinion is leave it agriculture because we are losing too much agricultural land.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
I just have one comment.
You gotta say your name for the record.
Joanne Management Titus. The only, it's about a 34 acre property. The only agricultural piece of it is probably about 8 to 10 acres. For years we've grown cow corn there. Local farmers have used that. So it's not an appreciable piece of agricultural property.
Okay, thank you.
Christine Engineer Hart, speaking of the property, it's gravel. You can't grow anything there. It's not really farm property. Cow corn will grow in almost anything. So don't overestimate this property. And Steve, I'm sorry that you feel like the end of the street is being invaded, but that has been private land for ever. We've had that private road that went through there. There's nothing but a headache.
Yes, and we never went.
Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, we're not gonna have a
So-
private debate or discussion. That's
Anyway,
something.
it's not conservation, it's not bird zone, it's private land. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have another comment you wanted to make for the application? Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? State your name and loud.
Heather Brisson. I mean, is there any way to say that these apartments are going to be affordable if it changes?
So that would be part of the special permit process. If an apartment is applied for, that information would be during the special permit process.
So that's nothing. Sorry.
That's okay. Nope, it's a great question. All right, any other comments or questions from the public? Yes, if you could state your name.
Lori Simpson, I live on Cemetery Road. How many apartments are we talking about?
So there's not a current application for apartments. What this is a zone change from an RA60 zone to an RA30 that would allow for apartments. If the applicant decided to pursue apartments, they would have to come back with a special permit application, which would include the specifics of how many apartments, what the building would look like, the parking, if there was affordable housing, all that level of detail would happen in a special permit process, which requires a public hearing. So it is a separate process at that stage.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Yeah, Rory Simpson, Cemetery Road. One quick question on the RA60, RA30. Is there a size difference?
Yes. So by regulation, it's a lot size difference. So when we're looking at what is required, so in our zoning regulations, there's residential districts and bulk tables. So then the minimum lot area for an RA60 is 60,000 square feet, whereas an RA30 is 30,000 square feet. So there's less land required for an RA30 zone.
Okay, that's why it was a little confusing that
That's
when
okay.
you have a smaller lot, you can put apartments on it.
Correct. It's
That's
more dense
just doesn't
housing.
make sense.
It's more dense housing.
Okay.
So the
Thank you.
RA60 is less dense, the RA30 is
Got it.
more dense. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I will just say, Joanne Langevin, I did read the articles, or whatever you want to call them, and one of the things, if you're concerned when we're not talking about apartments, I'm sorry I brought that up, I didn't really intend that to come about, but one thing that I did read, if you do put multifamily housing there, you also have to allow for open space, if I read that correctly.
It depends on the type of development.
So that you have, so it's not just like allow for surroundings of the buildings for I guess it's called recreational uses by the people that live there.
Did the applicant have any additional clarifying comments?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairwoman, I appreciate the opportunity just to give a quick rebuttal and response. We heard comments from a number of members of the public. I apologize, I don't mean to butcher your names. There was a gentleman from Laurel Street who was concerned of the impact of the zone change on the wetlands and that the wetlands might be ruined. And I think nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, what this potential zone change does is set up a situation where the developable portions of the property can be used for a reasonable economic return. And that leaves open the areas that are not developable, the pond, the wetlands, to be able to put them into permanent and perpetual protection and conservation, something that doesn't exist today. I think it's a great opportunity. It's a very scenic site. It's a site that will actually help us actually sell housing units by preserving that and protecting that for generations to come. There was a concern that also voiced that these are quiet woods that other people have enjoyed. And certainly I appreciate the fact that people might enjoy the property next to them that they don't own, but the key point there is that they don't own it. This is, as you heard today, the Langevins testified, this is privately owned land, and it's been land that's been held in that family for quite some time. They, like every other property owner in this town, have a right to get reasonable use and reasonable economic return from their property. And they and their agents, basically through contract here, have a right to come before this board and petition for a zone change. I would also point out that because there is no state road involved, the multifamily residential development regulation for special permit, which I authored and this commission adopted a couple of years ago now, does not apply right now to this property because there's no state road involved. So you're left with a very, very limited and modest multifamily use. And I would point out the fear of big apartment buildings is just not reality. The apartment buildings under the current regulations are limited to no more than 4 units in any building. So this, again, compared to what you might see in multifamily in places like Norwich or New London, this is a completely different scenario, a completely different regulatory framework. It's much like this kind of smaller, less intense apartments that you see in places like Pondview, which my client owns. Mr. Boda, expressed some concerns about it being a cornfield and a wildlife sanctuary. I think you've heard testimony tonight that it is not a wildlife sanctuary. There is water and sewer immediately adjacent to both of these properties. There doesn't need to be any major extensions. The water is there, it's available. It's on your own GIS mapping, you can see it for yourself. So there's no concern about not having the infrastructure to support that additional density. If you follow the Providence-Worcester rail line north to Worcester and down, all the way down to our shore, you will find housing developments throughout and along that rail line. The idea that people don't live near rail lines, particularly infrequently used ones like the Providence-Worcester, I think that's a fallacy. There are residential development throughout eastern Connecticut along that track. And I think Mr. Boda also made my case. He listed off some of the major employers that are coming into this town, and you need housing more than ever in this town because you want to capture people who are coming to work in these new facilities that you're building. You don't want them moving to Canterbury. You don't want them moving down to Norwich. You don't want them moving to Killenly. You want them to live here. Why? Because you want them spending money in your local small businesses. You want them going to your restaurants. You want them shopping at your supermarket. You want them to keep those dollars locally. So you need to have places for these people to live. I think the Langevins did a very good job explaining their history of ownership. I think the most important thing here is by rezoning this property and allowing Mr. St. Germain to now go to the next step, explore a potential development plan, there's an opportunity to protect the things that people like about this property. The pond, the beautiful natural areas that aren't going to be touched, and then use the areas that are suitable for development for some reasonable economic return. I would also say, and I appreciated the comments, I believe, of the woman in the front row about there being ATVs and trespassers going down North Pleasant. Well, I can tell you this, I can't speak because I don't represent the Langevins, but I do represent Mr. St. Germain. If this zone change goes through, he will be moving forward on the purchase of this property, and he has the ability to police that and stop that. So the issues of trespassers, illegal, illicit ATV use, we can put an end to that right now. It's not something that he's going to permit on the property under his ownership, and hopefully that might add, be something to offset some of the concerns that we've heard tonight. I would note that we have a lot of work to do, even if this rezone takes place. As you know, in a site plan or a special permit application, we need to submit engineered plans. We've got to do geotech. We have to do design, grading. We've got to go to the Wetlands Commission first. There's a lot of work. There's literally months, and I would caution tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in soft costs to put together a plan of this nature. I can't tell you what the housing type's going to look like. I can tell you what your regulations allow today, and those are no more than 4 units in a building, and 30,000 square feet of lot area per unit, which is a very, 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 in my experience, a very expansive or heavy requirement for multifamily housing. But what we can do is, as we go forward, we'll come before you, we'll be able to lay out a plan that makes sense. But no developer, no bona fide developer would spend that money without knowing first that the zone changed and that the use was actually even permitted in that zone. So tonight is really just the first step. Tonight's the first step to say, yeah, we want to allow Mr. St. Germain to now explore what could happen in this property. And we got to come back to you with that plan, a plan that makes sense, a plan that's been properly vetted. So again, I want to thank you for your time and attention tonight. I would ask for action on this zone change this evening, and I certainly remind you, if you're going to approve this application, make sure that you make an effective date for the zone map change as well. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from board members? Any final comments from community members? Any additional comments from staff? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion to close.
Second.
Second by Bart. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is closed. Moving on to the regular meeting, I call the regular meeting to order. I saw there are no additions or corrections to agenda, is that correct, Ryan?
There is one.
There is one. Where was that?
Inside the page.
I missed it. I apologize. How did I miss that? What is it, Ryan? Just, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so one item. Item B, 25-11SP of Roma Construction, requesting a modification of an existing earth excavation and removal permit for property located at 1260 Norwich Road, Assessor's Map 5, Block 3, Lot 1, Industrial 1 zoning district. If we could motion that onto the agenda as new business B.
So moved.
Second that.
Motion by Bart to add, second by June. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for that one. Right there. All right, citizen participation. This is opportunity to address the board on an item that is not an open application. Okay, seeing none. Moving on to the unfinished old business. Strategic Commercial Realty, Inc. Item A, 25-QSP, requesting special permit for earth excavation and removal on property located at 64 Black Hill Road, Assessor's Map 7, Block 78, Lot 19, RA 60 zoning district. Items for discussion on this application.
I have a problem with it because there have been a lot of neighbors there that have reported that the traffic is heavy enough that they feel it would be dangerous to have another operation. And in Ryan's notes, were there 100 trucks or 50 trucks a day on that road, on Black Hill Road?
The application states 50 round trips.
I thought I saw 100 somewhere.
Well, 100 each direction, 50 trucks.
Okay. And I would like to table this so that I could read, or we could all read the DOT report from the state. It seems like we get 2 minutes to look at it and we have to pass it down. We're not getting a good look at this. This is the biggest problem from the neighbors there. They're worried about that particular location. So I'm just proposing that we table it until we can really read that DOT report.
So Ryan, in regards to timelines, the public hearing is closed and we have 65 days to decide?
Correct.
Okay, so we do have room in the timeline for board members to read the traffic information that was presented tonight
And
to make a better informed decision on the application. So are you motioning?
Yes, I'm motioning.
Okay, so I have a motion by June to continue the deliberation of this application in order to review the traffic study. Do I have a second on that motion? I'll second her motion. Motion is on the floor to continue to allow for time to read the traffic study. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Since it's a split vote, I'll just ask for a roll call vote. Carla Desjardins, aye.
June Gagny, aye.
Bart Hessel, nay.
She's not voting number
Frank
2.
Mills, no.
Okay, so the motion to continue has been approved on a 3-2 vote, so this will be continued to the next meeting. Moving on to item B, 25-1SPL of Roma Construction, Inc., requesting 2 additional buildings on property located at 6 West Parkway, Assessor's Map 17, Block 11, Lot I-30, IP zoning district. Do we have someone speaking for the applicant? Do we have this application?
So the applicant has requested to continue because they are not ready to present.
Okay. So given the applicant is requesting a continuance, I'll entertain a motion to continue. I have a motion by John to continue and a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is continued. Item C, 25-6SP of DeWitt Barlow, requesting a special permit for a 24-by-42 detached garage with a 13-by-15 greenhouse at one end and bonus area above the garage. Property is located at 470 Plainfield Pike Road. Any items for discussion on this application? I think it was a pretty straightforward application.
I move to approve with the following recommended conditions. Number 1, proof of NDEH approval is required prior to receiving a building permit to construct. 2, the bonus area is not to be considered a dwelling unit. And 3, no kitchen is to be installed within the building.
Okay, we have a motion by Bart with, sorry, did you make the motion? I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay,
Move
so
to
we have a
approve.
motion by Bart to approve with conditions as read. I have a second by Frank. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved with the conditions as read. Item D, 25-2TA of Outfront Billboards, requesting text amendment to 13.5 of regulations to add section 13.56.6 to allow for billboards along I-395. Items for discussion on this application.
I think a current looking billboard would be a lot better than those two that are on Route 12.
Sounds like we're trading one problem for another, though.
I don't see it as a problem.
Hold on, June. Let him
Okay,
have
well,
his-
you're saying swap one for one. The overwhelming public sentiment has been, we don't want
Well, they don't
billboards.
over the
Hold on, let him finish his comment.
Okay, but I'm simply trying to,
Spirit of
Okay.
deliberation is.
June, I'll yield the floor as long as you give me a chance to
Well,
speak.
I haven't really finished. Go ahead.
All I'm saying is that I really don't see the delta here, other than we get that couple torn down, we're adding a couple new. We're still exposing 395 as a corridor to this type of advertising. It's consistently inconsistent with the POCD. That's what we previously stated, that's what we previously discussed. I understand that document is not up for revision for a couple of years, but on precedent, we've already turned it down once based on the basic description we have here. The only change I see is the guarantee that the town would be able to use it. I don't see that as a major contributing factor to approving this.
June, you had additional comments?
No, that's all right, forget it.
No.
Do whatever you want.
Frank or John, do you have additional
Go ahead, do
comments?
whatever you want.
Your vote counts as much as mine. I'm not fighting with you, June.
We have
I
5 votes.
see the vision, I see what it looks like in my mind. I know what it looks like. It's not legal. That's all.
Frank?
Oh, I'm in favor of it. I like doing with clear, fine, read.
Okay. John, you have any items to add?
No, the last time this came before us, I was not in favor of it, and I'm not changing my mind.
So in comparing the language that was denied a few months ago, the language that changed was the swapping out of old versus new, and then the text regarding the town's ability to advertise. I still question the legality of that language because I think it falls outside our scope because of the content in the state statute. In thinking about the plan of conservation development, the last application, we talked about maintaining the rural and semi-rural landscape of the town. I would say that some of the older billboards have become part of the landscape, so swapping them out doesn't necessarily serve a purpose of offsetting what the modernized billboards would be. The modernized billboards can be as tall as 50 feet tall, digitally illuminated, double-sided, 14 by 48, restricted to highway, but still ultimately changing that landscape. So I would just have that as the point of consideration in the review of the application.
I thought they were, it was going to be on 395.
Correct, restricted to 395. Yep. So any other items for discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to deny it.
Okay, I have a motion by John to deny the application. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, but a point of order, I thought under procedures of votes of this nature, we have to bring it as a vote to approve and then vote in the
So
negative.
what will happen is if a motion to deny fails, then a motion to approve must be made. So to simplify procedure, it is recommended that motions be made in the affirmative so that the yes or no vote prevails without an additional.
Okay.
So if John would like to, or anyone else would like to present a motion in the affirmative, you could withdraw your motion, John, or proceed with it as you see fit. Just knowing if it fails, it'll be a
Just
second.
for the record, I'll make the motion to approve.
So we have John's motion on the floor first, so we just have to either have John withdraw his motion or proceed with voting on the motion.
John's motion is to deny.
Correct, John has a motion on the floor to deny. Are you going to withdraw that motion?
Just to keep things straight, I'll withdraw that.
Okay, so the motion has been withdrawn. June, you
I'll
want
make
to
a
make?
motion to approve.
All right, June has made a motion to approve. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Frank has seconded the motion. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
No, and since it's a split vote, we'll have a roll call vote. Carla Desjardins, no.
John Moyer, no.
June Gagnon, yes.
Bart Haskell, no.
Frank Mills, no.
All right, so the application has been denied on a 3-2 vote. All right, so failed to approve, I should say. All right, moving on to item E, 25-7 SP of John Brisson IV, requesting a special permit for a 2-bedroom accessory dwelling unit in a commercial building located at 590-596 North Main Street, Assessors Map 4M, Block 111B, Lot 4, C2 zoning district. This application did meet all regulation. Any items of discussion on this application?
I would move to approve with the following condition, that the special permit is be recorded and the zoning permit is required to construct the apartment.
Okay, do I have a motion by Bart with conditions as read? I have a second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved with conditions as read. Item F, 25-1ZC of Stephen St. Germain, requesting a zone change of 34.16 acres on Cemetery Road from RA60 to RA30. Items for discussion on this application. Want to start us off, Jim?
I like the idea of having some specific, changing it so that we can have something different besides gravel pit and bikes going.
So just to be clear, gravel excavation is still an allowed use in the RA30 zone, so it wouldn't stop the ability of an applicant to
No,
do
but I'm
that
saying
lot,
that's
but-
what's happening with the land that is being invaded.
But what it does allow is less dense developments.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve zone change.
Okay, would you include an effective date with that? Recommended
June
June
1st. June.
June
Do we
1st.
need a meeting date or just June 1st?
No, just a date.
Just an effective date of regulation.
June 1st,
So we have the motion by June to approve the application with a effective date of June 1st. And I would just add that, given the location and the proximity to the sewer and water hookups, that it is consistent with the plan of conservation and development. It is an area that could support that level of development. And a lot of the more intense uses, like the apartments, are special permit, which means they would have to come before the board and the public again. So there is a level of control in that application process. So we do have a motion by June to approve with the effective date of June 1st. Do I have a second? I have a second by Frank. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved with an effective date of June 1st.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Item G, 25-5 SPL of Ron Lyman, requesting a modification to a previously approved site plan. Do we have the applicant here this evening?
We are not ready to present, so we should continue to answer.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
I have a motion to continue by Mark, second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is continued. Moving on to new business. Item A, 25-10 SP, William Kuchar, requesting to convert a 499 square foot office to accessory dwelling unit. This requires a special permit, so that'll be a public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by June to schedule a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which I believe is June 10th.
Yes.
All right, and a second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Scheduled public hearing in June. Item B, 2511 SP of Roma Construction, requesting modification of existing earth excavation. This also requires a special permit
Yes, it does.
and a public hearing. So I'll entertain a motion to schedule the public hearing.
Yeah, let's do that. Make that motion.
All right. June has motioned to schedule a public hearing in June, and John has seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is scheduled for June.
Madam Chair, question?
Yeah.
Is this the second application from Roman Construction? Do we now have dueling applications at this time for the excavation site?
So this is a modification of existing earth.
But they have another one before us also.
Then they have a site plan for additional buildings on a different property.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
It was unclear as to why we had to. Thank you.
Yep, that's it. All right, review and act on the minutes of the March 8th and the April 8th meetings. Do we have any, and actually, wasn't it March 11th meeting? Right? So I think it was the day before my birthday, and that's the only reason I remember.
March 11th.
Okay, so if we can get that corrected to March 11th. So review and act on the minutes of the March 11th and April 8th meetings. Any items for modification or revision on the meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I have a motion by June to accept.
Second.
Second by Bart, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting minutes are accepted. Any correspondence?
We have no correspondence.
Okay. Report from zoning enforcement. All right. Report from planning.
We have selected a firm to help us out with the what do we call it, the Moosup River Trail, which this will be a connection going from the northerly portion, which is up by the hatchery, down to Moosup Center by the Moosup Dunkin' Donuts, where we have the trail that goes over the bridge, over the river. So that firm will be helping us come up with a route for the trail. And it's going to take probably a couple of years before we can actually construct, but this is the first step.
Thank you. Report from engineering.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Moving on to other, so we're continuing our discussion regarding the advisory letter to the Siting Council. I did request to staff that we talk with the town attorney, Rich Cody. It is recommended by the Siting Council that legal representation be there. No application has been filed yet, which is kind of a triggering event for our letter. Did you have opportunity to talk to Rich?
I did. Council has informed us that the town can act as an intervener, but that would be basically through the selectman's office, the board of selectmen, I should say. So the commission can work with the board, but the commission cannot be an intervener themselves.
So it would be the town of Plainfield. All right. So did Rich outline the process to become, and I know there's a party and intervener, so there's two different statuses. It appeared that party makes you more able to present evidence in addition to whatever letter we may compose, so that it gives us a greater role in the process. So could Rich determine what the differences are between party and intervener? And I believe state statute does give us, as the board, the ability to hire staff, which means should the Board of Selectmen not support becoming a party to the application, I believe the board has the statutory authority to do so without the Board of Selectmen.
That is a possibility. He was speaking from the standpoint that the Board of Selectmen will likely take the interviewer's status.
Okay. Question, could there be two? Would it be the Board of Selectmen as one party and then the Planning and Zoning as a separate party? Or would it be under one umbrella of Town of Plainfield?
According to council, it'll be under one umbrella.
Okay. So could we make sure that we present to the Board of Selectmen that we want to pursue the party status as soon as the Siting Council application is filed?
We can do that. I also believe there will be a referendum, a non-binding referendum, to see where the town stands on this.
So like a public opinion poll?
Correct.
That's non-binding, meaning it has no impact on the Siting Council decision, but could be used as evidence of public support or not?
I believe that is the intention, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Art. All right. Anything else you want to include or question about our process moving towards the Siting Council?
Is there anything we can do to reach the people that are closer to Hartford? Because I feel like the local reps and the boards and commissions are being overrun.
Yeah. I mean, we can, I'm not sure if it would come from our office or from the selectmen, but I think it's upon all of us to make sure our state representatives understand that when local zoning control is taken out of our control, that it's not a good thing.
That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking even our local reps don't have as much power as the people in Hartford that are deciding these things.
But remember, it is the state representatives and state senators who wrote the law that gave this Siting Council this power. So if the state reps and the state senators don't want the Siting Council to have this level of power, they need to change the law. That's where we are. So right now, the siting council is operating on state law as it's written. So we have to participate in that process until they change the law.
Change party.
Yeah. So I've been talking to my state reps.
That's what I'm saying.
I have
That's what I'm
been.
saying, they've got
Yeah.
more control than.
Yeah, and I don't think there'll be any changes to law before this application is presented.
I think we're gonna have to fight it as a town.
Well, they're
I
gonna
think
have
we're-
to have mercy on us because nobody wants it.
So the problem is, the way I understand the city council was formed sometime in 1972 as a public infrastructure benefit, particularly as it related to power.
Yeah.
So the justification was, you need to put this infrastructure in your town because it benefits the 12 towns around you. That is the case example that was provided to me. So under that concept,
Yeah.
the city council has the ability to override what they call home rule here in New England, that we govern ourselves, because it is for the benefit of the gross majority of the people in the state of Connecticut. That is the sentiment you're fighting. When you look at the city council, that's how we got the wood burning plant, that's how a lot of people end up with these infrastructure components, because the towns don't want it, but it's for the benefit of the state. It's the good of the many versus the good of the few. And that's what I've been able to glean from the city council's justification.
And this is strictly for electrical?
So that
Power
their
generation.
definition has expanded over the years to things like cell phone and communications towers because they are for the public benefit that those things exist. But it was chartered under power. That was the original
But this
infrastructure.
is tied into waste treatment.
So the proposal is a waste plant that generates power, and that's how the city council has the ability to hear it, because it generates power. If it was just a waste disposal, I actually don't think they could sit in front of the council, because then it wouldn't be too tied to the power grid.
And because it generates more than 1 megawatt of
Yes.
power. So if it was, so remember the solar fields that come before us?
Yeah.
So because those are less than 1 megawatt, that's why they're within local control. As soon as they go above 1 megawatt, then it goes to the siting council jurisdiction.
Yep.
So we are just in the very beginning of this process. No application's been filed yet. I will keep you posted. I am working with staff, and I hope to talk to the town attorney, and we'll make sure that we work with the board of selectmen so that we can get that party status, which just gives us a greater involvement in the
The
process.
board of selectmen decided last night to attach this to the referendum at some point.
So I did hear Ryan say that, so
Yes.
it's like a public opinion poll.
Right,
essentially.
and the entire town would be able to vote.
Yeah, so that would just serve to show support or opposition. It would
Right.
not kill the project, it would
No, but
just be further
it's-
evidence.
yeah,
So, yeah,
evidence.
evidence, yes, we need evidence, yep,
Wouldn't hurt.
exactly, yeah, it'd be evidence, so we'll stay posted on that as well. All right, anything else for the good of the order?
What a motion to adjourn.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. A motion by John to adjourn, and a second by June, all in favor?
Aye.